We're going to discuss your ultimate 15.
And I actually really disliked him. This kid has got miles to go. That is probably the hardest player I've ever played with.
He'd have gone well at Saracens.
He would have, yeah. Full of annoying players. I am going to say I think.
God. That's it.
Hello everyone and welcome to Hits Different. We are at the spiritual home of Hits Different, Effingham and Leatherhead Rugby Club. Ben Earl is our guest today, firstly. It's great to see him, he's looking glorious. Benjamin, here with Aki, we're going to discuss your ultimate 15. And now I know you're only young, you may look a little bit older than you are, you're only young, but you have still played with and against some amazing players and you're still going to go and play against loads of amazing players. But 1 to 15, if you could just run us through, starting with the forwards, the best players.
I'm going to try and do it with people that I don't think I'll play against again. That's a big thing for me. I wouldn't want them to think that they're the best that I've had at the time. But
you worry going into a game next week if you name drop someone.
Well,
they might,
they might drop it in there. You know what it's like on the pitch nowadays. There's slide comments going all over the place. Yeah. I'm going to go number 1, Mako Vunipola. I think he transformed how a loose head was perceived. He could do everything. I mean, literally could do anything. Did anyone see that clip of him at Van the other week?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a group chat, me, Jamie George and Andy Christie and Mako. And said, Mako, it's an amazing kick, but what on earth are you doing in the backfield in the first place?
Are we saying as well, it went sort of a little bit viral, Mako's show. It's probably one of his worst kicks, isn't it?
I was going to say, it was almost surprised with how, he didn't find grass anywhere near as much as he normally does.
And the other guy sent it back 60 metres over his head.
And he's just gone, no
worries. Why did he say why he was there?
No, I think he just shattered.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and also, a good mention to some of antics off the pitch as well. He'd keep morale very high.
He went for a stage, didn't he? Do you know, it was like coming off the back of line-outs and going Mako to Billy.
Yeah.
And he was doing things very different.
Yeah, I mean, some of the, you could always tell who was going to play that week. I mean, Mako was never under selection, discussions, but if number 1 was in the back line, you're like, Mako's playing, so go from there.
But he generally was as good as a 9 or a 10 at ball
incredible,
handling,
incredible. When I would go as far as say some of the seasons I've had under him, I would say as far as say under him, he was almost the coach of our pack, in terms of how we wanted to run our plays off 9, how we wanted to run plays off 10, how we wanted them all. Yeah, he was incredible. So he definitely, almost wasn't really a discussion for me. I'm going to have Jamie George at 2. I don't think, I'm struggling to think of a better thrower.
Yeah. Better bloke.
Just an all-round player as well. You think Jamie, where's the weakness of his game? He can run forever, tackles hard, carries hard. He's got a great skill set, great thrower, great scrummager, got everything. So. And like you say, great golf, great bloke, average golfer.
Nice.
Tight head, Vinnie Cock. I've gone for that European Champions Cup winning front row.
Yeah.
I think at their prime, they were as good as a 3. And Vinnie still, 50 cap, Springbok now, part of the bomb squad. Again, just an absolute freak.
Another kicker. See the European final last year, 50-22 against Gloucester, didn't he?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, really talented.
Riggsy, obviously you played 6, 7 or 8, hybrid. How nice is it to know that those first 3 are just
unbelievable? Yeah.
For your game, especially coming off the base.
Just when you knock the ball on, and we've played in teams where it might not always be the case, you knock the ball on and you go, oh God, this is an absolute flip of the coin. We knock the ball on, and everyone's like, how do Saracens celebrate? Well, no wonder we're celebrating we knock the ball on. Look at that front row, we're absolutely sweet. There's going to be no worries, is there? So that's the front row taken care of. I think going to have to go Maro in the second row. Again, change the way that I think second rows are sometimes perceived. Calls well, amazing athlete. And people are saying to me, when he breaks the line, does that dummy kick or something, he would be well up there with one of the worst people I want to tackle in terms of his knees and elbows. He's all just it just hurts, everything about him.
Awful to play against that.
Yeah, he's also so clumsy. He steps on your feet all the time.
Does he?
Big for that. And he wears those big, long, 35 centimetre studs or whatever it is nowadays. I'm going to go, the other lock, I'm going to go, honourable mention to Will Skelton. Still the biggest player, still got the biggest impact I've ever seen anyone have on a rugby pitch. but I've got to try and get him in. So I'm got Peter Steph-Toy in the second row.
Oh, it's
Wow.
Just because my back row is crazy.
Okay, yeah. I like what you've done there.
So he's in the second row for me.
Probably
again,
could dominate the second row.
Yeah.
I think World Player of the Year out of his position, so the back row must be good.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The back row is good. But just a quick mention for Peter Steph. I mean, the intensity. He'd be one of the few that I've looked at in the eyes and like being like, you could rip my head off if you wanted to, and like you look like you want to, so I'm not going to go near you for the whole game. But he just hits hard, carries like no one I've seen before. He's just a freak. And that World Cup final performance, although I wasn't playing, it was just incredible against New Zealand. I think it was awesome. So back row, I've gone number 8, Dwayne Vermeulen. Everyone who has played against him, and I've lucky enough to do it once, he's such a strong, he's just got everything. I mean, if you could base your game off someone in the back row, it'd probably be him. He can jump, he can maul, he can tackle, he can run, he can jackal. And actually spoke to him before we played South Africa in the autumn, and he was genuinely such a nice guy, and I thought that was a nice moment for me. So, definitely go for him.
You're not alone either. We've had a few
Jamie's a big fan of him,
Jamie's
isn't he?
top. Scott Brits put him in as probably the most important part of his pack as well, didn't he? So
Yeah, I think that's when you know when
he's a reasonable player, really.
Your peers are all saying it, and like it's hard to argue. against him. And now he's a coach.
Now
he's probably going to be as good as a coach as he was a player, which is scary.
They say like the way that he reads the game was apparently incredible as much as anything.
It's a good 8. That.
At 7, I've gone Lavani Bottia. Honourable mention to Scott Berger and Tom Curry for those two as well. Just Bottia, I mean, I've played against him twice. One for La Rochelle, one for Fiji. At La Rochelle, he single-handedly beat us, although they have an amazing team. Like, every time, if there was a breakdown and he was in this room, he would get that ball. It was incredible. It was honestly like, got to the point where I was like, guys, we're better not having the ball here, and we'll see if we can get something else. And that Fiji quarter-final of the World Cup, there was a collision between Tom Curry and him, and I've never heard anything like it. And obviously that was that nice square-up moment after. Yeah, I did enjoy that. I mean, I was quite quickly trying to get Tom away, thinking you're in trouble here, mate.
Yeah, get out of there.
Yeah. And 6, I've gone Courtney. So played against and with Courtney a number of times, and again, for someone who is as long and as big and built the way he is, he not only has that amazing jumping capability, but the way he hits, the way he carries, the way he turns ball over, and the way he leads. I think we've got a nice balance there in that pack.
Who's your 9, mate? Who's your 9 and 10?
I'm going to go for... 9 was tough for me. I've played with some great 9s. Richard Wigglesworth is amazing. I think Ben Spencer's amazing. I still think Faf de Klerk is the one that I've always been like, we've got to play against him, and he's just going to piss me off in whatever way. I would say him, and also just like I do think his product is on the whole very, very good. I never played against Aaron Reed, and I'd love to, but yeah, I think Faf de Klerk for me would probably be the one that I'm like, you're probably up there with the best I've seen.
Great hair as well.
Yeah, just annoying in every sense of the word.
The whole thing. He has
a great
got the
description.
full
Just a bit pisses you off.
You see him on the whenever we used to play Sale, and you'd look, and the Friday midday they're named, and you see him at 9, you're like, okay, just like, and you're almost thinking like about how not to get annoyed by him before the game starts. Then you get annoyed by him within 10 seconds. You're like, right, okay.
He'd have gone well at Sarries.
He would have, yeah.
Well,
he'd fit in really well, wouldn't he? Full of annoying players, but no, yeah. I mean,
you said it, not us.
He's again, he's another one where we play Sale, usually lose on a Friday night because that was their niche. Then he'd be the first one out with you boys in the evening. So I was always like, fair play to him. You're a good lad as well. So
I like seeing when big names come over, because I think he played his best rugby at Sale as well. I think he's been great for South Africa, but I think he found his moment at Sale, didn't he, for that 3 or 4 years? I like seeing that.
I think it kind of propelled him.
He was
doing well in South Africa, but then when he came over here, it kind of given him that new lease of life. And he was a bit different. He was different, I think, to other 9s.
Yeah.
And I used to love playing against him because you had to test yourself against the best.
Yeah.
You knew that every breakdown you had to be on it because he'd be there trying to. Yeah. And developed a few ways to try and get at him, because the way he defends, there is space. But
Yeah.
there was times where we got it right, but there's so many times where he would get it right.
Yeah.
And his big hair would look glorious in the wind. But he's a good, different player. Like, who's your 10, mate?
Not even a question. Owen Farrell for me. Yeah, I think I'm probably captain. Yeah, probably Owen Farrell, 10 and captain. Goal kicker. I mean, nothing more really needs to be said. I just can't.
People, Ben, because a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, right? I think people that don't know Owen in and out, like I'd say yourself, I think I know him fairly well.
Yeah.
He's always right up there for me in terms of the best players I've ever played with. But some people don't really get it. Can you understand, like,
Yeah.
do you get frustrated? I get frustrated when people say, and I say, how can you not see it, what he gives to a team?
Yeah.
But maybe you have to have played with him to...
I don't know, and or against him.
I actually, do you know the area that I think he doesn't get anywhere near enough credit for, and it really frustrates me, is I think his passing game is brilliant, and his offloading game is brilliant.
Yeah.
I know everyone's going to say his leadership and his kicking, etc., and his determination and this and that, but his passing game is brilliant. Like there's not many who can pass a ball like him, and his offloading through contact, he's a big bloke, isn't he? His offloading through contact is very, very impressive.
I just think, like, with my journey with Owen, it was a bit different, where I came in, you know, as you sort of all do, coming from like a school environment, you thought you were the best thing since sliced bread. Owen was the first one to be like, nah, this kid has got miles to go. And I actually really disliked him for a while. And I thought, you are just a really, you know, why are you being so horrible to me but so nice to someone else? And then the penny dropped for me for a while. Then you finally you've earned his respects. And that was a big thing at the club, was like, you had to go through this period with Owen where, like, he would want to be not testing you out in that, not in like a sinister way, but you'd have to, like, he's not just going to be real nice to you and leave you alone unless you've done something to, like, actually, you know, prove why you should be it, prove why you should wear a Saracens shirt in the big games. And it takes a while. And then once you get that, it's like this relationship he's an amazing guy, an amazing player, amazing teammate in terms of, oh, and I'm struggling with this. Oh, have you tried doing this? I think about this. And then all of a sudden it's like, this is incredible. And then just to play with him is just like, I don't know, I reckon I took it for granted. Certainly early on in my career that you get to play with Owen Farrell. I reckon he's the one player that if, like, I'd be gutted if I never play with him again. I think he's just special in so many ways. He can make you do things that you didn't know you could do. And I think that's the biggest testament you can have to a leader, is like, he would never, his biggest strength as a leader was making me play 10% better than I've ever played before. And I think that's the sign of the best leaders and the best players. And he might have had one bad game, and I played with him probably 100 times.
I've never known someone drive standards higher than what Faz did. And like you say, you also, whenever he's on the pitch, you felt calm. You did. You feel like a better player. You felt calm because he would tell you exactly what you were going to do, what's going to happen next. Good 9 and 10, mate. Let's go to your centres.
I am having Brad Barrett at 12. Again,
Very underrated.
I was going to say, don't say that apologetically.
Yeah.
You don't have to
No,
apologise.
I realise I've got a lot of Sarries in mind. I think Brad
you've played
was,
there for
again,
quite
an
a while.
amazing leader, but just, he was so underrated. So underrated. I've never seen someone take a ball from about 25-metre pass and somehow always make gain line and always make quick ball. I mean, as a centre, you'd see Brad and you'd think, this game is going to hurt.
Just he is what he is, and you sort of know what's coming.
Yeah, and you can't defend it.
They say it's probably it's one of those games that it's different to playing like we talk about on like Estes, and you know Brad's is coming one way and one way only, but he was I think he's possibly the most consistent player. Like you talk about Owen's consistency, Brad's on another level consistency, isn't he?
I've got a funny story about Brad. Brad is probably the hardest player I've ever played with. Got a screw put into his cheek the week of Champions League final. Played with like a grade 3 hammy, Champions Cup final. Got man of the match, amazing. But in pre-season, he always struggled with blisters. So during pre-season, he wouldn't do any of the conditioning. So I think I was like, Brad Barrett, that's fair play. You're not only unbelievably so smart. Then at the end of the session, he grabs a conditioner, runs barefoot for an hour up and down, which is incredible. But like, no one has ever missed training for blisters other than Brad Barrett. It's incredible.
It's nasty blisters there.
Oh, they're
nasty
tough.
blisters.
There's some bad injuries, but a blister.
Yeah, a couple of
Pre-season blister as well.
Oh.
You think you've cracked it with these new boots, and you put them on, and within the end of the skills session, you're like, these are the only boots I've got as well. I'm in trouble now.
Experience. I used to love playing with Brad. He was, like you say, he was every single time you played with him, you knew what you were going to get. And he'd do anything for the team. Like the amount of times he'd have a bust eye or a bust nose because he ran it. But still beautiful.
Yeah, I
He
know.
still had that South African beauty in him.
He's
Always had that
flourished as
glow,
well
didn't
again. It's come back, hasn't it?
He hasn't come back. Yeah, he looks
Yeah.
good now. Outside at centre, I'm having Semi Rendrada from Bristol.
Yeah.
I think
How fun was it playing with him?
the Piatal Rendrada duo was incredible. It was incredible. It was some of the moves that we had at Bristol was like, this will never work. And then like Semi would get the ball and then you make a line break. Like, how has that worked? It's incredible. I mean, yeah.
You know, you have to remind Pat there. You got Pat. That's not because of the move you've made up. That's nothing to do with the move.
It's this guy.
That's because of that bloke there.
Yeah.
You try and do that with a normal bloke.
Yeah, no. I just think like very rarely have I met someone who's like, you have been put on this earth to play this sport, and he has. I'm a big rugby league fan. I used to watch rugby league and be like, that is incredible stuff. But I didn't really ever think he could back it up. And then he went to France and played unbelievably well. And then I was thinking, oh, it's in France. Then he come to England and was, arguably again player of the year that year.
And touching on Sammy, what did that year do for you? Obviously, it was a tough time with Sarries, but you going there sort of gave you a freedom to. I think we saw a different player there, and then a blend of the two came back to play for England and Sarries. I would suggest.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think at Sarries I'd been taught to play a certain way, and at Bristol I then was played to, almost go completely other end of the spectrum and how they play there. So there was that rugby education. There was also that was a big year for me in terms of my maturity as a player. I think I was 21, 22, about to turn 23. And then once you get to 24, 25, you then are expected to be senior player, perform. So that was a big year in terms of like my maturation, wherever I was going to be. And I went to Bristol as sort of like a young buck, like played a few games, played all right. I'd played a couple of times for England. And I came back, I felt like I was like a professional Premiership player. I felt like I'd managed to churn out a load of games and play to a consistent enough level that I came back and I was like, okay, I now belong in like this environment. I now belong in this league. I belong trying to get into international honours and etc. So, yeah, and I had an amazing year. I mean, I played with players that are just you never get to play with again, and yeah, it was great. Loved it.
Good team on it.
Biggest regret was obviously
Bottled a semi-final.
Yeah.
Obviously. Look at him.
It was incredible. I mean, yeah.
He doesn't mention it
No,
much.
what an incredible game. I mean, I actually don't remember a single thing from that game, but I've never watched it back. But there was a moment where
You can catch it on DC Reacts. We actually reacted to it on Hits Different.
Have you done it?
Yeah. You can. So
Send the link, please.
You can relive it all if you want to.
I just remember there is one moment I remember, and I think I've told you this. We came in at half time, and you guys had just scored before half time. Is that right? Yeah. 28-5, 21-5. 28-5. And someone said, and I don't know who it was, and that's where you talk about like Owen and Sarries in terms of like that Sarries would never have lost that game. Probably would never have been in that position, but would never have lost that game. But someone said, like, what we're going to do Saturday night after Twickenham. And I just remember thinking that, and I thought, and like, I don't remember thinking loads about it at the time, but then afterwards I was like, the writing was on the wall there, like.
Heads are gone.
Heads are gone. If I was completely honest, like, we'd done very little training, that whole block, in terms of, we weren't conditioned, the way Bristol had won games, the game was over by 60, and that was, again, looking like the case against this lot. We weren't conditioned for a game to go deep into like 60, 70, 80 minutes because you just didn't train enough. Because the people that you're talking about, your match winners, your Piatals, Redrada, they couldn't do that. Their load was such that they never were like conditioned enough to do that. They would normally come off at about 60, 70 minutes and the game would be done and it would be great. The moment we got challenged to play deep into a game, we came up short. And again, it showed me the value of training hard consistently throughout the campaign.
Because you didn't, tell me if I'm wrong, but you at Bristol, you didn't have any preparation for Super Sunday either, did you? Because you thought you were winning, whereas you had everything booked, didn't you? At Quinn's.
We were booked up.
And I believe the Ealing lads then, the next day, when you
They
then
take that booking.
when didn't they used all your bookings the next day, didn't they?
Yeah, probably did, yeah. Just
the Ealing
switched
lads
that to...
slipped into
We're going to
your...
need it to delay it a week.
Yeah.
It's funny hearing the other side of that, Riggsy, because we heard lads like laughing and sniggering as we were walking into the tunnel, and we were like, we laughed in the changing rooms. We were like, we can't be this bad again. But we were like, we get one up against these boys, and we said exactly the same all week. These boys, their big players come off at 60.
And it did happen, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think Semi went off.
Well,
10
it
to
went
go.
to extra time, didn't it? In the end, so it was like.
So and like I wouldn't say it's a regret of mine because actually the amount that game taught me and that whole kind of week taught me. But
Oh, you're welcome.
yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, but like you say, it's one of those ones
education.
where let's be honest, whoever won that game was probably going to win the final, and then did end up winning the final. So yeah. So where am I?
Sorry again.
digress, yeah.
We're diverted to Quinn's again. Wingers.
Wingers, I'm going Penno and Colby.
Good wingers.
I just think both are unbelievable. Colby speaks for himself and don't really need to say too much. No one hits harder and has been as small as he has, and no one has as good a step in him. Penno is different altogether. He's like a racehorse. There's never a kick. Have anyone seen that try he scored at Bordeaux? Neither of us were playing, where they leathered it long and like everyone thought, well, that's going dead. I think that's him. He's got all the talent in the world, but he's got this like crazy switch. And actually, funny enough, I've actually been out with him as well. We played Breve one night on a cold Friday night in the Challenge Cup. Penno's dad had won the Champions Cup with Breve that year, and it was like the 21st anniversary or whatever, and he was there in this nightclub with us. And he's unbelievable on night out as well.
Is he?
Yeah, good credit to him.
Good on him.
Good wouldn't leave him alone though. I don't know if he was trying to groom him or something, a weird fella. But yeah, so those two. And then 15,
If you say anyone other than Charles Pietau,
I am saying someone that Charles has got a very honorary mention.
I was going to say Max Malins, aren't you?
Max Malins. I'm not going to say Max Malins. I am going to say Goody. I think.
God. That's it.
Remember that shock face we were trying earlier? That's that one.
I think Goody.
You're choosing Alex Good over Charles Pietau, just so we're aware.
I am, because again, there was a
like
consistency to Good that I haven't seen. That kind of spine of that Saracens team were unbelievable. I think he won European Player of the year we won it, one of the years, and again, pretty good. I'm gonna kill a myth here. Goody is one of the greats off pitch for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then has to be dragged along. So that whole like bum bag in your kit. Yeah, he was still standing there at 5 PM, but boys, Will Skelton and George Cruz were carrying him from bar to bar. If they're carrying you, you're probably going to move, aren't you? So like,
I feel like loads of people messaged me, like, have you seen Goody? So I was like, I've never seen him.
I've never seen
kick
him
on
get
and be
past
the.
the left foot.
I try and stay
one to
away
go
from
again.
him. After a few hours, you stay away from him.
So yeah, dispel that myth,
player.
but yeah, a hell of a player, and also got a different kind of leadership style, but actually is a great leader in terms of some of the stuff. I can imagine if you spoke to Max, he would say Goody was one of his big, like, helpers, big advocates for like helping him, because his knowledge of the game, Goody's knowledge of the game is amazing, and he'll probably go on and either be a terrible pundit or a really good coach. So one of those, yeah.
Right, he is still an incredible player, and the amount of times he would slot in at 10, which isn't an easy thing to do in that team, to step into kind of Faz's shoes, and he would play unbelievable. Mate, that's a hell of a team. We're going to go through it here. Maka Vunipola, Jamie George, Vincent Koch, Maratoje, Peter Steph-Toit, Courtney Laws, Lavandi Bottier, Dwayne Vermeulen are the forwards, Faf de Klerk, Owen Farrell, Cheslin Colby, Brad Barrett, Semi Radradra, Damien Penno and Alex Good is an unbelievable team, Benno. One more question from you, Aki, is who's going to coach this team?
Asks it every week.
One more question from you, Aki, would be...
Ask it again.
One more question before we let you go, Ben, is...
Who's going to coach it, mate?
Well, I've only worked under four coaches. Eddie, Mark, Steve, and Pat Lam. I think that's right, yeah. And it'll be Mark McCall. He is in the similar mold to Steve, and there's probably no coincidence that Steve played under Mark. That they're very similar characters in terms of detail, relentlessness, in terms of it doesn't matter whether we're playing Dartford RFC at their place or we're playing the Champions Cup final. You've still got the intensity around the preparation. You've got such a knowledge of the game, and you've also got this calmness around. He knows his players, so he would completely leave Billy. He trusted Billy that was always going to be right for a game, regardless of how he trained. And then on the other side, he's really hot on a few other players where he needs to try and get the best out of them. And I think that's a sign of a great coach, is like not treating people differently, because there's ways of doing it, but he was a master at like making sure that you came onto that pitch feeling $1 million, both emotionally and physically.
Good team,
Do you think he gets
Good
the?
team.
And he's got an incredibly. No one speaks more quietly in a team meeting, but you still, the moment he speaks, you're always listening.
Do you think he? I think he does generally, but like what you just talked about, that's brilliant. That's brilliant sort of emotional understanding of people, isn't it? Do you think he gets the world-renowned credit, but because he's not gone to the other level, or because he stayed at Sarri, something? But do you think something?
Do you know what I think it is? And like people have like always said like he should be an international coach, and I don't know his motivations, but Phil Morrow is a very close friend of his, and I once spoke to Phil about it, and Phil said there is nowhere near enough rugby for him. He loves rugby. He loves it. He breathes it. He's watching something. So, for example, he'll come in on Monday morning and say, "Did you see that try that Van scored at the weekend?" I say, "Funny enough, no, I didn't."
I was sucking into a roast.
Yeah, I was actually having a pint of Guinness and a roast lamb. But he's watching games. He's learning. He's bringing stuff in. So I think like he is a rugby nut that like I don't know his motivation, but I wouldn't be surprised if he never coached internationally, because there's just not enough.
Unbelievable team. What a player.
What a